Let's get Hector back. Let's get Hector back on here. Ciao, everyone. Welcome to our class today. We have series going on here with Karins Engineering. This is class number 2, featuring Hector Velazquez, and he's going to talk about reserve studies. And this is going to be for both the HOA associations and also the condominium association. So I know I've had reserve classes on prior with a couple of companies and their expertise on those subjects, but I haven't had an engineer. So I thought it'd be awesome to have an engineering perspective and someone with a lot of experience. So Hector, when you get there, we're all going to be all ears. Thank you all for registering. This has been a great turnout today. We have over 350 people registered for today's class. My name is Peggy West. I am the event organizer. I have a new website out called Florida Condo Vendors for You. So if any of these vendors have services you need, I will be sending out a sponsor sheet with everyone's contact information on there. And possibly if you need something, it's budget season, you can refer to them for information and bids. This is going to be recorded. I will circulate it following the webinar. And I just want to mention to the CAMs out there, this is a 1-hour CEU credit for you as well. It will be probably put on within a couple of weeks tops, and we appreciate you attending. I want to say thank you to the board members for coming on today as well. It is a volunteer position. Everyone knows that, but some people take it for granted and you get the brunt end of things. I know in your associations from time to time, but now you can say, hey, I'm educated, so keep taking these classes. You're doing awesome. If you have any questions, put them in the Q&A. The chat box is really just for comments and also for the sponsors to put their contact information in there. But again, I'm going to be sending out a sponsor sheet. So with that, let me get started introducing our sponsors for today. I'm going to start with Vinteum Software. We have the newlywed and just back from honeymoon. Congratulations, Katie Basford. Katie, tell us about yourself and the company and your honeymoon, huh?
Yes, thank you very much, Peggy. I'm coming off of a very fun couple of weeks, but very excited to be back here with the webinar group. And here at Vinteum, we provide websites and back-end platforms for HOA and condo associations. So we do all things not only to help you get compliant with those changing laws in Florida, but also to help you streamline communication and management within your association. We offer things like e-voting, Zoom integrations. So really looking to be a one-stop shop here for all things association management. So if that sounds of interest and you want to learn a little bit more, happy to get a free demonstration scheduled and find the right fit for your community. So thank you very much for the opportunity, Peggy.
Thank you. Also, please thank your team for all they do behind the wings, especially Juliana and Amanda. Next, I want to introduce another huge support person for me, Daniel Baum. He is one of the top brokers in South Florida. He owns and is the founder of COA Solutions. Daniel, tell us about yourself. He's today's moderator as well.
Thanks, Peggy. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today. I'm Daniel Baum. I am the founder of COA Solutions of Florida. I specialize in commercial property and casualty insurance for condominiums, HOAs, and multifamily property. You probably heard me say this before, but I love to say it. My job is to help you and your community find the least expensive possible coverage for insurance while not losing out on coverage. It's been an interesting year this year. Hopefully you all saw reductions on your property insurance. Thankfully, we haven't had any major storms yet, knock on wood. And hopefully that continues, because if that continues, we should see continued reductions going into next year. It's been a little bit of an interesting market in the GL and the directors and officers market, where things have tightened up in some places and loosened up in others. But that's the thing about insurance. It's always moving, it's always changing, and carriers are always changing how they're underwriting things. So my only advice to you is make sure you always have someone out there shopping your policies for you every year. Every year things change. Every year you should look for alternatives to see if you can find savings. If you'd like, I do a free review of policies. There's nothing to sign. I'm happy to look them over and tell you if I think you're paying too much or if there are better alternatives out there. So thank you again for joining us today. I hope you enjoy the webinar, and I look forward to being in touch with all of you in the future.
Absolutely. Sounds great. Okay, next I'm going to move down to Shawnee Haas. Shawnee is with Munyon Painting. She's a fairly new addition. I hope things are going well. Shawnee, tell us about yourself and what is going on with Munyon these days.
Hi everyone, I'm Shawnee Haas. I'm the new marketing manager at Munyon Painting. I've spent the last 4 years in various marketing roles across construction, news, and technology, and I'm very excited to now be a part of the Munyon team. For over 70 years, Munyon Painting has been helping Florida communities look their best with high-quality exterior and interior painting services. We're very passionate about protecting properties, and we love partnering with boards and managers to keep their communities sharp and well-maintained. And again, a big thank you to Peggy for putting these webinars together, and I'm really looking forward to meeting and connecting with everybody.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, next let's introduce one of my staples here. I've got Bob Aleka on today. He's the Vice President of Community Services for Faster IO. Bob, tell us about yourself, what you're doing, and what we need to know about your product. You're muted. Start over.
Thanks, Peggy. Good afternoon, everybody. Bob Aleka here with Faster IO, providing streaming television and internet through our fiber optic system. We can provide endless amounts of internet speed from that are all symmetrical, streaming TV that you can take anywhere, including out of the country. We also provide a virtual private network, VPN, for all residents. It's included. We provide a community channel as well. What's interesting about us is that our parent company is a data center, so everything is in-house. Everything comes from the data center. We're here in Deerfield Beach with 150,000 square feet. So we would love to speak to you about our services, how we can help you and save maybe possibly some money. If you're within a 2-year window or less of your current agreement with TV and internet, give me a call. We'd love to come out and show you what we can do and invite you to take a tour of our facility. Enjoy the class today, and thanks, Peg. Back to you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. And special acknowledgement of the VP of Marketing for Faster IO. He does a tremendous job helping Bob maintaining relationships. And if you can't get one, you can always get Michael. He's also available, Michael Zarin. Next, I want to introduce a first sponsor for me for all these years. I've never had someone in this category. I'm proud as a referral came to me through Hafer Company. I want to introduce the president of Kaiser Air Conditioning. That is Paulo Weston, and also his marketing rep today is on, Ruthie. Paulo, tell us about yourself, the company, and Ruthie, a few words, please.
Yes.
Hi. Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Paulo. Good. Sorry.
Hi, Paulo Weston, owner of Kaiser Air Conditioning and Plumbing. We're really excited to be here. We're excited to be the first. Peggy, obviously you're amazing. I appreciate all the onboarding and all the help. But anyway, we are a air conditioning company and plumbing company where we have 2 locations, West Palm Beach and Port St. Lucie. Been in the business for over 20 years. We have just over 50 trucks on the road. We provide a true 24/7, 365-day service for residential and commercial properties. Anything from a single standing commercial building up to a high rise, we can handle it. We do basically a customizable service agreement for you, and that would include a comprehensive list of all the equipment that you have on your properties, which seems to be something you guys are looking for. I know it's also budget season, so we can help you with future budgeting with your existing equipment. And, we're just looking to be a true partner for you guys and offer a service that, you're looking for. So you'll be hearing from us. You'll get a follow-up email from us after the webinar, and then it'll have all of our contact information and stuff on it. And we look forward to hearing from you, and anything we can do to help, we want to be your partner.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And Ruthie, tell us some more.
Well, I will be the person that you connect with. So moving forward, I hope to hear from you guys and to continue to support you any way that we can with all of your HVAC, plumbing, and electrical needs. And we look forward to working and hearing from you guys.
Sounds great. One of the things I was most impressive with was I'm thinking, okay, we have an air conditioning company, and how many are there out there? But this guy, or they have 100 trucks out there. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sorry, 100 employees and what, 70 trucks out there, Paolo. So you are certainly available to serve individual associations as well as residents in your homeowners associations. So.
Just over 50 service trucks. Total trucks is somewhere in the 80 range right now, including installers and things like that. But yeah, we are available. We're here.
Absolutely. Awesome. Okay, the next few I'm just going to make a mention of. These are sponsors that have had other appointments. This apparently is a very busy week. I know there's a couple of expos going on privately with management companies, but I do want to recognize them quickly because they are a great part of why we have such a large attendance today. Starting with PD Concrete Specialists, just the name says it all, I think. They have been around for over 20 years, based out of West Palm Beach and servicing the Tri-County area. Anyone need help with that, you might go through Hector first and then get them on board through Concrete Services. Next, one of my longtime sponsors, want to recognize the president of City Quiet Windows and Doors, Ben Friedman. He has a lot going on in this industry, very well respected, and has a professional service, I think, second to none. Next, I want to recognize Best Roofing, Diana Alert and Cameron Andres. They do a great job representing the company. Diana has been around for a long time, servicing. Now they're moving over to Fort Myers area as well, but just the Tri-County, and also moving up into possibly Jacksonville shortly. So anybody on from that area, great reputation, been around for over 50 years. The next company is Alanek Railings. That was also a new company for me to have as a sponsor a few months ago. They do manufacture, install new and repair railings from worn projects. But Alanek Railings are based out of Lantana. They've been around also about 20 years, came on referral from PD Concrete. Next is the paving lady. We have Dawn Miller. She's a representative, has been around for a long time in the paving industry. I'd say at least 15 years. And her owner has been around over 35 years. Very outstanding services available. And they are also servicing the Tri-County and moving up to Orlando area. So if you need a bid on that this year, you're getting ready for budgets, please consider the paving lady. Next, I have First Citizens Bank, Jamie Gelfand. She is out on vacation. She's cruising. Good for her, right? Jamie is a longtime representative in the industry, a former property and regional manager for First Service Residential, and she is now representing First Citizens Bank and available for loans. They are very much interested in talking with you about your projects. Next, I want to introduce Hafer Company, longtime sponsor for me as well. They have 4 offices around the state. They are known for doing audits and exceptional in their services. So please contact Nicole Johnson or Mark Landez. They will also be on the sponsor sheet. Next, I have Legacy Life Plan. This is an attorney that specializes and is a trusted leader in estate planning. This is both for legal expertise, and she has a compassion for every client and tries to help you so that she crafts customized plans. This is a fairly new sponsor for me based out of Boca Raton, but she is servicing the entire state via Zoom and very respected and knowledgeable. Last, I want to introduce Damaris Cabrera. She represents Clarkson and Varick. They are engineering elevator consultants. So if you need some information on your elevators, I know a lot of you condos have those, use a consultant first and then go into your repairs and so on. But these consultants know all about all the various different companies in the United States, and they are national. Damaris is based out of the North Miami area, and she is servicing the entire state. So reach out to her, very knowledgeable. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Daniel Baum. He's our moderator for today, I mentioned, and I'm going to let him take into the introduction of our speaker today, Hector Velazquez.
Okay, thanks, Peggy. So quick housekeeping items. Once again, just to remind everyone, we will not be monitoring the chat box while we're doing our presentation. We will be monitoring the Q&A, so if you have questions, please put them in there, and please make them, I don't want to say generic, but typically we can't answer questions about your specific community. It would be more if you have questions that are more common for the group. So just keep that in mind if we don't get to a very specific question of yours. Hector's going to make time periodically to take questions, and then we'll take some more at the end of the webinar, whatever we didn't get a chance to get done. Quickly, as an introduction, so Hector Velazquez has over 20 years of experience in construction management in the public and private sector. He's experienced in the day-to-day field activities, construction activities, and evaluation, inspections, of course, and evaluation of projects. His career started in the public sector with the housing department and utilities, moved into the private sector in 2006 when he worked as a designer for a water resources and project management. In 2021, with Karins, he was promoted to the Tri-County branch manager with the office in Fort Lauderdale, while also maintaining the Daytona office. In 2023, he was promoted as East Coast regional manager, where he opened 2 additional offices, West Palm and Miami. Today, he's part of the board of the ICRI South Florida chapter, a member of the American Concrete Institute, a member of Florida Structural Engineering Association in the Palm Beach chapter, a member of the Building Association Management in Volusia County, and as a professional engineer licensed in Florida and Puerto Rico. So I'd say it's fair to say he's got some credentials on this topic. Hector, with that, let me turn it over to you if you want to share your slide and begin your presentation.
Of course. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. I know this is a difficult subject, so we're going to try to make it as lightly as possible. Let me see if I can start sharing. So, okay. And we got it. I hope everybody can see the screens. So like I said, I work for Karins Engineering Groups. Karins Engineering has been in business from more than 20 years. We got offices all around Florida, as you can see on the screen right now. We with the addition of Miami and West Palm Beach that we just opened recently, and with the intent of continue expanding. We're a structural engineer firms first. We are all encompassed, so we do restoration, but we also work on new design, including mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. So with that being said, let's go through our reserves. So types of reserve studies that we have as of now in the Florida market. As of 2024, there are 2 types of reserve. We got our structural integrity reserve studies, SIRS, SEERS, however you want to call those, and the capital reserve, which was the original law that we had in Florida, 2024, 2022, approximately after Surfside, the state came up with the SEERS one, or SIRS, which is more structural based. The SIRS, as required for residential condominiums only, associations at least every 10 years after the condominium creation from each building 3 stories or higher. Florida new SIRS law, formally outlined in the statute as of December 31, 2025, the required for a SEERS now applies to condominiums and cooperatives buildings that are 3 habitable stories or more in height. So they make that distinction because it was too general saying 3-story height. Now they're very specific about habitable. So the question will come out as, what is habitable? According to the Florida Building Code, a habitable space is a space in a building for living, sleeping, eating, or cooking. It does not include the bathroom, toilet room, closet, hall, screen enclosure, sunroom as defined by the code, storage, or utility spaces. So any place that you will go to sleep, any place that you spend your day, like the living room, for example, eating or cooking, those are considered as habitable spaces. So if you have a building that has 2-story, but the attic was converted to a bedroom, that could be considered as a habitable unit. So now it will fall into a 3-story kind of scenario. The associations can fund their reserve via special assessment, a line of credit, or a loan. Provide such measurements are approved by the majority of total voting interest on the association. So at one point, it wasn't clear on the statute how it was going to be funded. Now they made it a little bit clear and allowed to have a loan as a way of funding our reserves. Boards can now fund the reserve using the pooling account method and can be changed the accounting method for reserve from pooling to straight line, that we're going to talk about what is which, and vice versa, straight line to pooling. And they can do that without the voting of the members. Design professionals, architects or engineers, and licensed contractors bidding the SEERs or performing SEERs, they have to disclose that they intend to work on the building for replacement of the work related to that SEER. So for example, us as an engineer, we will have a disclosure for you guys, and this just came out on the new law, on the revised law, that we will be bidding if we found concrete restoration or concrete repairs to be done. We would like to be your engineer, so we will have to make that disclaimer for you as well. The law clarifies the 2-part test for an other item to be mandatory, including the SEERs. So what are those sections? The first is the replacement cost or deferred maintenance for expense that exceeds $25,000. You will see later on, because we have it on our presentation, what the SEERs is required. And I'm very sure that most of you already know what the SEERs require, but we have it here as well, that they have particular 9 to 10 different items that you are supposed to be saving for, plus the other items that are now $25,000. Originally it was 10, now they raise it to 25. Second, the failure to replace or maintain that component must negatively affect the structural integrity of other 7 mandatory reserve components. So what should be included on that other term that the SEERs has? If anything that negatively affects the structural integrity of the other 7 items. So you got the roof, you got the roof, the pumping equipment, you got the painting, you got the waterproofing. Anything that affects that, and by that you can call it even the railing, for example, that damaged the concrete, that damaged the waterproofing, they could be considered into that other item on the SEERs. Board can invest their reserve funds in certificates of deposit or deposit on banks without the vote of the unit owners. In a condominium building is declared unhabitable. If a condominium is declared unhabitable, and we have those issues happening now, by the building official, the board can pause reserve fundings without unit owner approval. You do not want to get to that point of your building being declared unhabitable. Once you get to that point, it's going to be very complicated for the board, the engineer, the property manager to get things moving. Now it becomes an emergency. Now it's more expensive. Now it's more difficult to find fundings for it. So I will highly recommend always do repairs and work on your building and don't let it get to this point. Officer and director of the association are now required to sign affidavits acknowledging the receipt of complete SEERs report. So that happens between typically the property manager will keep those records, but you're supposed to have those that, yes, we received them and we have it in our possession once you become an officer and directors. What are the purpose of the integrity reserve study? The SIRS, or Structural Integrity Research Study, were mandated and developed to ensure the association with buildings 3 stories or higher of habitable space are up to par with structural integrity and safety standards. Associations use those reserves to set the amount charged each owner for their chairs, or to accurately disclose the statutes of the Sears found to owners and the Florida Building Department. The SIRS report are a listing of major structural and items that prolong the useful life and protect structure assets funded through the reserve, their expected service life, their remaining life, and their current replacement costs. So I'll give you a simple example on that one. And again, this presentation is very technical in that sense. It's very boring in that sense. So we'll try to make it a little bit more interactive. So what is the expected service life? So let's say you have your car. I'm not going to use a building as an example. Let's say you have your car. A car nowadays usually will last you probably 7 to 10 years with proper maintenance and care, right? So that is my expected life of a car. A person like myself, like Daniel, the average life expectancy for a human being, a male, is 73 to 75 years old. So that is my expected life. So what is my remaining life? Well, as of today, that equipment, that my car, myself, have been in service for X amount of years. Let's say I bought a car in 2020. I'm expecting it to replace it in 2030. So it's 2025. Life expectancy or remaining useful life is another 5 years that we will have on that car. The same thing you can do with your building and assets. Most of you have already seen the Sears and know about this, but other association and you use the same method for your reserve, eventually, you will have your expected service life and the remaining life. So for concrete, usually we go that every building will have a restoration project 7 to 10 years. That is my expected service life. So from your last restoration project to now, what is my remaining life? And the current replacement cost. Based on cost today, how much it's going to cost me to replace or fix my building. Let's say that you're responsible for windows. Windows have a life expectancy around 20 to 25 years, depending on the one that you have. So that's my expected service life. I install it in 2020. So 2040, I'm supposed to be replacing them. So right now I have 15 years remaining useful life. The cost of those windows today will be, and I'm making the numbers up, $10,000. So divide that 10,000 for the 15 years that you have remaining, and that's how you get your replacement cost, right? That's the way that you will evaluate a Sears and in general a reserve study. Before we go through the components that we have listed here, Daniel, any questions so far that we need to answer?
We have a couple that might be pertinent at this point. So one individual asks, they're a treasurer of a condominium, and the members of the condo want them to spend their reserve funds on a project that actually still has more useful life. I'm assuming that more useful life was determined by an engineer. How can they, essentially what they're asking is, it's stated, do I cave in and spend all the reserves, or are there laws against that which can be used to stop the harassment? So essentially, they're looking for if there's a way to essentially say, look, here's our study. I can't spend the money, or, they want to spend the money.
So it depends on a lot of items based on the question. I'm going to try to answer based on the question, but there's a lot of questions to that question, right? And I'm sorry about using the word harassment. It's sad to hear that, but it happens. So let's use the example of a pump for the water system. You may have an estimated useful life for the pump of 10 years. You replaced it a couple of years ago, but you're having bad service to the top units, right? Let's say the pump is not strong enough, or something happened through the building that the water is not getting with enough pressure to the top level of the units. You were saving money to replace that pump or fix it in the near future. Can you use that money to replace or fix the pump, yes, that's the purpose that you have it there for. That it wasn't until 3 years from now that you were supposed to do it, I can understand that and agree. But if you have the money and you have owners that are having difficulties because on this example, they're not getting the right pressure, or at one point of the day, they barely get any water up to their unit, then I will consider that to be a major issue, that because no one wants to have no water in their unit at 5 o'clock when you get from work and want to get a shower, right? So spend the money because you have it there. That's the purpose that it was there for. Now, if they want to use it for something that wasn't there for, let's say that, oh, the pumps are fine. I just want to have a revamp of the pumping room and have it painted pink. I don't know. I'm making it up. So you want to spend the money on that? No, that's not what the reserve are for. So I will caution on how they want to spend it, but the reserve money is to be used as needed for those items if they are needed. If it's because I don't like the color of the pump and I want a beautiful pump that now is pink, well, that's very different than the service is not being provided by that pump. And I'm using a pump as an example.
Got it.
Hope I answered the question.
Yeah, let's another one here. If you cannot meet your 2026 starting Sears number, are you required to either fund through a loan or raise fees to meet the targeted amount for 2027?
So from what I have read on the law, and I am not an attorney, please keep that in mind. I'm an engineer, so I'm very technical in that sense. I'm not an attorney. As we saw on previous slides, you can fund the Sears through a loan. You can fund the Sears through a special assessment. You could do that if you're falling short. I will argue, being an owner of an apartment, that why are we falling short? Either is because people are not paying, or we underestimated it and we needed more money than what we're saving for. So that will open up another kind of worm if we did it wrong and we're not saving the right amount of money.
Okay, let me just see. I wanted to just touch upon the questions that have specifically funding questions. By the way, a continuation of that question from the first one in terms of what the funds could be used for. She says that it's for paving and has no it's for paving project that has no potholes and past inspections, and it would clean out the rest of the reserves. So it sounds like it's more of a beautification than it is a necessity. And I think you made that clear that if it's a beautification, it would not justify using the reserves as opposed to a necessity that's something that you have to solve today.
Correct.
Okay. Hector, why don't you continue and we'll come back to the questions again as we get through the next few slides.
Not a problem. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So components included on the Sears. And again, I know most of you have seen this before. We have our roof. We have our structural system, fireproofing, fire protection system, plumbing, electrical system, waterproofing, windows and exterior doors, other elements over 25. On waterproofing, keep in mind that they included the exterior painting. So let's go real quick through this. The roof. What is the purpose of my roof? The purpose of my roof is to protect the building from the elements. Roof have a life expectancy, usually 20, 25 years, 16 years, depending on the type of roof that you put on your structure. They're flat roof, they're slope roof. It will all depend. Keep in mind that for roof, and Daniel can extend this way more than I can, there was a time that even Citizen, and I'm using the insurance company Citizen as an example, were forcing or telling the clients, hey, after 16 years of service, no matter what, I'm going to have a new roof put on no matter what. So if that is still happening or not, you should talk to your insurance agent first and make sure, or have your engineer or the person that is doing the Sears to make sure that we're all aligned. Because I've been on a couple of Sears that, no, it's a metal roof will last 30 years. I agree. But the insurance will tell you to replace it at 16. So you're not going to have the money to do it on 16 years. Daniel, you want to expand on that one?
Yeah, that was a very specific to citizens, and thankfully, most of us are getting out of citizens these days. But when a couple of years back, when we were all racing to citizens because the prices of premiums for anyone else was absolutely outrageous, one of the demands was specifically for a flat roof. They would only give you 15 years. And there
Right.
was a loophole that if, at 15 years, if you had an inspector go up and say it had an additional at least 5 years useful life, we could get you one more year of coverage. Thankfully, that is not that rule of 15 years for a flat roof is a specific citizens rule. It's not the case with many other carriers. My recommendation would be to, lay out your reserves for what the useful life of the roof actually is, because that's what's happening now in the insurance space. But keep in mind that if markets change and we do end up having to go back to citizens because of coverage options that aren't as favorable, we may be back with these sort of draconian requirements of citizens as to what components have to be changed. So I hate to say we don't have a specific answer on it, but thankfully, if you're not with citizens, the 15-year on a flat roof is not a mandate from all the other carriers.
Thank you, Daniel. Structural system, we're talking about my structural components, my beams, my column, my slab. All of those are my structural components that keep my building standing. So typically we recommend including ICRI and Florida Building Code at every buildings that are exposed to extreme weathers. And by that, Florida is considered a place for extreme weather. But if you are close to the ocean, you're going to be affected more than people that are inland. And Florida, it's vast on that part. It's not the same to say structure in Orlando and a structure in Miami Beach, right? Because the weather there is different and the environment from the ocean is very different as well. So structural components, as a rule of thumb at Karins, we follow that every 7 to 10 years you're redoing every 7 to 10 years. If you've never done in 30 years your restoration project, the first one is always going to be the most expensive one. After that, if you enter into a cycle of 7 to 10 years, you will have less and less repairs because you're keeping up maintenance on your building. So that's why we always say 7 to 10 years. Let's use the example of 7 years. Year number 5, you're evaluating your building to do an assessment. What is wrong with my building to be fixed? Year 6, you're getting all your documents ready and you're bidding your project out for year 7 to start doing your repairs. When you finish the repairs, that will typically go 6 months to a year. Then you're painting your building. So all of that falls into a cycle between one and the other. Because exterior painting, for example, you can get it and you'll get Sherwin-Williams to tell you, hey, you can get a warranty for 10 years on their painting. That's good, great, but with the weather that we have, is very demanding on those surfaces. So it's usually 7 to 10 years what typically we recommend of doing painting on your building. So 5 to 7, you're your assessment and fixing. So when they're done at 7, you are painting your building. So one falls through the other. Fireproofing and fire protection system, the same as plumbing. As you can see on both of those, is very general. So if I have a building of 3 stories and they are not using even a pump, what plumbing am I consider? Well, of course, you're going to consider any fireproofing that you might have, but you might have no system for it either. But you might have some fire protection system, some sprinklers, some other stuff. So those have to be addressed and should be included on your CERS. The plumbing system, well, we got it from the city, but you got some valve around the property. You got your sewage line that you should be cleaning as well. You should be lining those when they're starting to get scaly. Those items are the ones that should be including there. So on plumbing, if we go to that about relining a pipe, that we are seeing a lot of projects coming in about those, especially on the beach side, most of the buildings at one point were built with cast iron pipes. Those pipes with time, like any steel, will start to deteriorate and clog your piping. So what it's done, typically you get a company that comes in, clean that piping, and we put a sleeve inside. Typically, it's going to be a PVC kind of system that gets embedded in there and extend the life of those systems. That is a lot cheaper than replacing my plumbing. However, there are times that there's no option and you still have to replace the plumbing. Comes a time that you will have to do that. But you can extend the life by relining. How do you get to one or the other? It will depend. How long your building being in service? 25 years, 30. Have you have any issues with water leakage? Have you have any issues with water breaks? Have you have any issues of clog on those lines? If the answer is yes to all those, let's do an assessment. Let's evaluate those piping. Let's see if they're damaged. Let's see how they are. And then you can get a practical number or a life expectancy. If you never had any issues with the plumbing, then we can assume, an educated guess, that since you never had any issues so far, no fixing, no leaks, no nothing, then the system is in good condition and it can have a bigger life expectancy on them. Same thing will go to the electrical system. Typically, electrical system will last for a long, long time unless you have a fire on your building. But electrical system can include your generator, can include your transfer switch, can include any other major item that you might have to provide electrical service to your association. Waterproofing and exterior painting, this has been a big content when the SERS started, because painting is not, or waterproofing actually, painting is not on the code. And people were complaining, why am I saving for painting if it's not on the code? I didn't make the law. It wasn't my requirement. The law clearly states that you're going to save money for waterproofing and painting. If you look at it as holistic kind of scenario, those are my first line of defense for my main structure. When you see buildings that are having spalling issues, that are having issues with concrete falling apart and damage of stucco and water intrusion, is because my waterproofing system has failed for years and no one addressed it. So if I have a building that I haven't painted in 10 years close to the ocean, you got a lot of cracks that are not being addressed. You got sealants that are not being addressed. Water will start seeping through my concrete and will create spalls, which will, by effect, will damage my structural system. And now you have a major restoration project going on. If you were to keep up with waterproofing and painting every 7 to 10 years, 5 to 7 years, you will have a better, safer building. Plus cleaning, guys. Always keep in mind that all of this is included, but you always have to keep up with maintenance. Clean your buildings. Have someone to pressure wash it every other 6 months, for example. I got a building that they do every 6 months. They power wash their balconies. So they go from the top to the bottom, so everybody get clean. That takes a lot of salt out of the system, which is very good and extend the life of the building and my waterproofing and painting. Windows and exterior doors is the same item as plumbing and electrical. Keep in mind that is what the association is responsible for. Not the unit owner, that most of the documents that we have seen, the unit owner is responsible for their windows and sliding glass doors. Perfect. But the association is responsible for the entry door and the windows that we might have on my general areas. So those are the ones that are required to be replaced, unless your documents say something different. Other elements over $25,000. Here, for example, we consider stucco. Stucco is not mentioned there, but it's a structural component that we consider to be, as an engineer, as important as waterproofing and painting. And you get the laminated stucco. Sometimes it debonds or separate from my concrete structure. So you want to fix that. The railings. It's not specified railings anywhere on the statute. However, railing is a safety factor. You don't want anybody falling off your building. Railing, if they're embedded or have screws through my concrete, has already penetrated my waterproofing system. If you don't keep up with maintenance with them, it will create spalling. It will create detachments. So those are items that we as engineers will try to include on my SERS. Safety factors, safety issues, and extend the life of my structure. Yes, they're not specifically called out. You're absolutely right, they're not. But as an engineer, if you got bad stucco, you're gonna have water and moisture right next to my structural element, my concrete, and then the rebar will get corroded, and then you're gonna have a spalling going on my structural element, which I will not recommend having. So those items is why we include those. I'm giving you those as an example on why you should have it there. Something that we consider nowadays after the Surfside collapse. If you heard the news about the Surfside collapse, sometimes they have mentioned that what caused the damage was not the building per se, it was my pool. The pool was separated, an elevated pool was separated from the building. The collapse happened on my pool, which pushed my columns of the building and caused the building collapse. So we as an engineer, we will see your building in that sense and say, hey, if you got a pool this way, and if it will fail, then it will fail my building because it could happen the same kind of scenario, right? We will give you those options for you to evaluate, but we will highly recommend to include those areas because they could affect the building, and your engineer should be able to explain the why. I'm a fan of explaining always the why. Why? Because the pool can collapse. Once the pool collapses, it will fall my columns. The columns are not designed to be without support. Once I break my column, my structure is coming down. So I don't want that to happen. If I have a pool that is on ground right next to my building, I will ask you, hey, do you have any water problems with that pool? Have you have a lot of cracks? Because remember, we live in Florida. Florida is a sandy place, and you could be creating what's the word in English? A kind of a sinkhole right next to your building, and you don't want to create that because then that will cause the building to tip over, right? So we don't want to go through those scenarios. So I will add those in on my other 25,000 as protecting the main building. The Sears report.
Hector, real quick, there's
Sure.
some questions on components. Can I just jump in with you?
Of course.
Okay. Does the electrical system include elevators in the Sears component list?
They are not included. However, if you consider them to be a safety equipment that you want to maintain, you could include it, but it is not. Because, for example, people can go down the stairs and they don't need the elevator for it, right? So
Right.
you don't really need it to maintain the building standing.
Okay. Plumbing is a broad topic. Is there a list of specific items of plumbing components?
There could be a list that could be provided by your engineer or the person doing the series, but there is not a particular one from the statute. It's very broad, like they say, yes.
Okay. Let me just see if there are any other component questions. Okay, I think that's it for component questions, so please move on.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
So our SERS report, an evaluation of the current financial strength of the SERS fund, usually expressed as fully funded, a recommended multi-year reserve funding plan over the next 25 years, assets that are not replaced within those 25 years, you do not need to be funding them until the asset has a remaining useful life of 25 years. You could go that route if you want to save a little bit of money, but typically it's better to be saving $100 now than $1,000 later. SERS accounts need to be fully funded and funding cannot be waived. So this goes back to the question. They do have to be fully funded. You could fund it by a loan, a special assessment, but you cannot waive your funding to that SERS. This is a typical table that you will see, and in this case, this is an Excel table that we use for your SEERs. So you will have your roof system. If you look to the right, you have your roof system, the AC stand, painting, concrete restoration, common windows, stairwells, and so on and so on. We will have the quantities of those items. For the roofing system, in this particular example, is 14,000 square feet. It has a useful life of 20 years. It's been replaced almost 15 years already, or 14 years, so the remaining useful life is 6. The unit cost for that roof is $38. How do you get to those numbers? We'll get to that. And my replacement cost will be $549,000 as of today dollar. The first initial year of replacement will be 2031, 2051, the second one, and the third one is 2071. So you will always be using that money. So let's go real quick on how we estimate those unit numbers. As an engineer and doing restoration and doing repairs on buildings and working on roofing system, we are constantly bidding projects that are addressing those items. So right now we're bidding 3 projects for roofing jobs. I got one that is a slope roof. I got 2 that are flat roofs. So I'm talking to maybe 15 different contractors for bidding those jobs because they're in different areas. So those numbers are going to be more accurate than if I go to Google and try to find out how much do I need to replace my roof and how much it costs in Florida. Those numbers are going to be more accurate. That you can find a local guy on Stewart, for example. I'm using just the place to make it as an example. That he only worked in Stewart and he might give you a better pricing. Yeah, that is possible. But on average, on companies that do this every time, that's where we will get our numbers. We do not make it up and we do not pull it out of thin air. AC stand, we will call companies that provide those. Painting, concrete restoration, stairway doors, we will call those companies and get those numbers to be inserted there unless we have it on a bid. Because again, we do this every single month. We're bidding a project out. So we are doing most of those jobs and we can get actual numbers from contractors that will do the cost. Now, keep in mind, the cost that you're seeing here does not necessarily include my general conditions, my permitting, the 2 guys that are going to be extra workers there, extra jobs that I have to do to get that job. This is just to replace my roof. Whatever has to be done to replace the roof, it will be there. But my general conditions for the contractor, the permitting and all that, typically they're not included, just the roofing particular number. So you have to consider that it's going to be a little bit higher here and there just to compensate when you bid the project out later on. Component schedule is that we divided it by building envelope, balconies and walkways, plumbing, fire safety. And you can see on plumbing, for example, we got, in this particular example, we got roof drains because those are part of plumbing. Common drain, deferred maintenance, replacement, building potable water, and booster pumps that you will be using. So we have it a lump sum or each for the pumps or my system, the life expectancy of those, and we do the same thing. We estimate it out. If we're going to be relining, if we're not going to be relining, if we're going to be replacing. And you can include your maintenance deferred costs. So you could have that and have it on the SEERs as a component that you're going to be using through the years. When you submit a SERS, the law requires you to submit your SERS to the FDBBR. They have a website particular for that, and it's supposed to be the association responsibility to submit it. I have received a lot of calls about, hey, we never got your report from DBPR and they're looking for it. Well, it's not our responsibility. The engineer responsibility is to submit the milestone report. We are responsible for that one. But the SEERS is the responsibility of the association. We can help you and assist you, but it's your responsibility. If you have issues submitting the report, contact DBPR. They're more than happy to help you there. You can verify if your SEER has been submitted by visiting the SEERS report database. And unlike the milestone study, SEER must be submitted, like I said, by the association. Now we're going to talk about, and we can take a pause here, and Daniel, you can tell me if there's any other question. Now we're going to divide what is my reserve study from my SERS study. Remember, those are 2 different aspects that we have on our association. HOAs will fall more, and when I say HOA, I'm considering developments that are single house families or 2-story buildings that are HOAs. Now this fall more to you guys than and associations as well. But the SERS is more for condominiums. Reserve study now covers almost everybody. Any other questions, Daniel, right now?
Yeah, I can give you a couple. There's a lot on the funding, so we'll get to that once you discuss the funding side. Here's one. For routine expenses within the Sears components, like fire extinguisher inspections, roof annual inspections, can these expenses be paid out of the Sears account, or would it be better to just continue having these in the operating budget and paid out of the operating account?
I highly recommend to have it on the operating budget.
Okay.
The Sears is more for repair or replacement. And when we say repair, for example, on concrete, you're not gonna replace the entire building, you're gonna be repairing it, right? So those other components, like the fire extinguisher, those should be on your maintenance part.
So here's a question about clubhouse HVAC that is set to be replaced in the next year, but allocated the cost for a complete replacement of $18,000. They have a strong recommendation to replace it this year with a geothermal system, which will significantly reduce their energy expense, but the upfront cost is significantly higher than the $18,000 they allocated. The rationale for proceeding to benefit from the 30% off incentive and other benefits. So the geothermal system has a return of about a return on investment of about 8 years, and the other reserve fund replacements do not have a return. I guess, and all other reserve funding replacements do not have a return on investment. I think the question that they're asking is essentially, do we go and spend more money than we allocated for the replacement of the same item with a better item that we believe will have better functionality and a return on investment? Or because we've only allocated the 18,000, should we be replacing like kind unit?
That falls into each individual one. I cannot tell you one way or the other. The association should make that call. What is better for them? Each individual association is very different, and the members are very different. If it were me, I usually go to something that can save me money in the long run. But you have to evaluate, like a lot of houses nowadays. Oh, I'm gonna put my solar panels. Well, if in 30 years is when you're gonna recuperate that money, does it really make sense? After 30 years, every electrical component has to be replaced anyway. Does it really make sense? So those kind of things, you have to evaluate it individually. What makes sense for us, and then change your Sears or reserve to accommodate for that new system that you're gonna have there.
Okay, one more question on components, and I'll let you continue. So this is an HOA question where it says that please discuss the HOA responsibilities for the private subterranean conduits, such as a stormwater and collection line, to an owned and operated WWTP. For example, lines that are over 20 years old, should the line be inspected for evaluate to confirm the status of the condition and functionality integrity? It's probably very expensive to do the entire system. So is it satisfactory to do sample area? So I think they're trying to determine what they're responsible to do when you deal with these subterranean systems and where it comes to reserve funding.
So if you are responsible for those systems, then yes, after 20 years, I will highly recommend scope them out and see how they are. Are they holding? Do you have root coming through those piping? Are they collapsing? You should know that before you have a bigger problem. Let's God forbid we get another hurricane, but we're in Florida, it's gonna happen eventually. You got torrential rains, and suddenly, while you're having that big issue of a hurricane, the system collapsed. Now the whole system is flooded. Every street is flooded. Your car is flooded. Well, if you would have known that, wouldn't you have fixed it beforehand? So yeah, I'm very highly recommending always to scope it out and make sure that you know what you're getting into. Fix it if you can and when you can, because that will save you a lot of headaches down the road. It's always better to be proactive than reactive. It's the way that I will go with those systems.
Okay, thanks, Hector. Please feel free to continue.
Not a problem. So capital reserve studies. So like we said, we got the CERS and we got the capital. The CERS are for buildings 3 stories or higher, with 3 stories being habitable, I cannot say it now, habitable places. Sorry about that. And my reserve covers everything that is not my structural part. In general, that's the best way that I can describe it. It's simple enough. So a capital reserve study gives those overseeing the maintenance of the condominium, townhome, or HOAs a better idea of what is non-Sears major expenditures, an estimate of when this expenditure will occur. The association used the capital reserve to set the amount to charge each owner for their share of the annual reserve, to accurately disclose the status of the reserve fund to owners in annual financial statements. Again, it's very, this goes with your house as well. You create a budget. Typically, we're supposed to have a budget every month of what I'm gonna be going through my expenditures in my house, right? So if I pay for phones, I pay for electricity, I pay for streaming services, I know that I have to replace my range. I know I have to. It's better to have a sinking fund than not having anything at all and then put it on a credit card. I'm not a fan of credit cards or those kind of systems, so I prefer to have a sinking fund that I can use. If you look at it that way, that's exactly what you're doing with your reserve studies and CERS. You're creating a sinking fund for when it is needed. The reserve, in this particular case, HO is a little bit different, but you are saving for items that you're going to be replacing, repairing in the near future. So you do the same process as you did for the Sears. You do the expected service life that you're going to get of that equipment, the remaining service life that it has right now, and my current replacement cost, and put it to the future, how much I'm going to be spending to replace it. Capital reserve, the evaluation of the current financial strength of the reserve fund, usually expressed as a percentage fund. Recommended multi-year reserve funding plan. Only component which the association has maintenance responsibility are included in my reserve study. Non-structural components. Why? Because the non-structural component or the structural components are already covered under the CERS, right? But for an association or an HOA, you could have items that will fall into those items because you're not part of a CERS, right? Let's say a 2-story building, you have structural component that you should be considering on your capital reserve. So keep that in mind, that when we say non-structural in this presentation is because we're assuming that that is covered by the CERS, but if you don't have a CERS, you should be considering through my capital reserve. Every item that the association is responsible for, you should have a line item on the capital reserve, which are not yearly maintenance items like we just had that question coming up. The association governing documents provide the guidance of what must be included. You might want to include, I'm making it up, the front door, but the original document said that it wasn't the association, the front door of every unit is the owner's responsibility. So it should not be included on your reserve. Should be only what is on their governing documents or voted for. Florida statute governing association has specific requirement for each type of community association. So I highly recommend go to the statute and make sure that you are covered, that you're following the statute. We will have something, a component schedule similar to this one. We will have a starting reserve balance of $1 million, annual reserve amount of $475, my second reserve amount, those items that you're seeing as first, second, and third is how much I'm going to be saving on those periods for that particular period, 2, 3, 4 years of $475, $450, $400 to get to the numbers that I need. Keep in mind that most associations already have a starting balance. It's very strange to see nowadays that an association has never saved for anything. It does happen, and I work on those, but it's very strange. If your association is one that has never saved for anything, I highly recommend start creating a budget, start creating a saving fund, a reserve balance, because you will need repairs in the future. Component examples that we can have the lobby finishes. That's not a structural thing. That's a beautification of the building, like we were talking before, office finishes or office furniture that you have for your property manager, office package, the clubhouse AC unit. Again, no structural elements. We're talking about items that the association have to keep up. My AC for my gym, for example, those can be included and should be included on my reserve study. Plumbing that is not considered for the main structure, the clubhouse, the water heater, drain deferred maintenance replacement cost. Those are, like we were just discussing, those exterior items should be on my reserve as a maintenance cost that we're gonna be doing. The capital reserve account requirements. So Florida Statute 718 required condominiums to fund a reserve account for roofing replacement, building paint, pavement maintenance, other non-structural expenditure exceeded to $25,000. See that we put roof replacement and building painting in red because those are typically covered on the CERS. But those are covered on the CERS for buildings that are 3-story or higher that have 3 habitable story on them. So an HOA, a building of 2-story high, do not fall into this one. Okay, that's why it's still covered on the Florida statute to replace the roof, my building painting, pavement maintenance, and non-structural element. If you are a 2-story building, you do not have to comply with the CERS. You're happy about that because it's not enforced by the law. But as an engineer, your building will go through maintenance as well. Wood or concrete, you will go through maintenance of that building. Start saving money for it. You do not want to get an assessment. That the biggest issue, and you can go through any newscast and look about the CERS and the issue with the CERS. Oh, we all live on fixed income. We cannot pay for the maintenance or the special assessment. But if you start saving money now, you will have enough money when the time comes to fix it and repair it or replace it. So save the money now. It's better to save $100 now than get a special assessment of $75,000 because now you have $3.2 million and you're only 24 units. So we don't want to get to that point. Save the money. You know you have to fix the building. You know you have to replace the roof. You know you're going to have to do some maintenance on your building. Start saving the money. As an engineer, we highly recommend always, always, always include building repairs on your reserve if you're not part of the CERS, right? That's what I'm getting at with this. The reserve contributions is computed using the estimated useful life, remaining life, estimated replacement cost, and deferred maintenance expenditure for that component. Florida Statute 718.11.12 limit the use of such fund to authorize reserve fund expenditures. So for the lady that was talking about, they want to use those funds for fixing the road, even though the road seems to be fine. Keep in mind that the statute already has something for those kind of events that you should be able to read. So 718.11.12F give you the limit to use those funds. Like we said, if you're going to be fixing something because, hey, it has a big pothole that we need to fix, and you want to use those reserve funds, yes, that's what it's there for. But the street is very nice, clean. It doesn't have any potholes. I just want to change it from asphalt to concrete. Then that's a different animal than doing what the reserves or CERS want for your building. Florida Statute 719 governs cooperative association reserve. The requirements are similar to those of the condominium. Florida Title 40, Chapter 720 governs HOAs. Keep in mind for the people here that works on HOAs, there's a particular statute for you guys as well. Reserve funds are not required unless the governing documents call for the study. That falls to the HOA more than anybody else. But I highly, highly recommend, like I just said, it's better to save $100 now than $1,000 later or a special assessment of $70,000. So keep that in mind because it's easier for everybody to give $100 than trying to get a special assessment or you have to put your unit for sale now. Florida Statute Chapter 721 covers the budget. In addition to the annual operating expense, the budget may include reserve account for capital expenditures and deferred maintenance for which the association is responsible for. Type of capital reserve. We got fully funded with updated inspection, updated without inspection. A fully reserved study. The reserve analysis will complete a site inspection to get the measurements, counts of non-structural component element. And when we say non-structural, it's for the guys that already have the sears. The ones that don't have the sears, yeah, you should be including your structural element as well. You're going to be including any common elements, taking a photo of inventory of most of those components. So some associations are responsible for the gym equipment. That could fall into my reserve as well. We're going to replace them every 5 years. That means my Pilates, my weights, whatever you guys have included there for your gym as an example in this case. The upgrade reserve study without site inspection. The reserve analysis will ask the association about expenditures made, change in pricing, variation of funding from the original plan. No site inspection is performed. So what are we talking here? So me as an engineer, when I go and do a reserve, I have two options. I can go to the site and make sure that how everything is right now, the life expectancy of those, what have we done? Or you can say, hey, Hector, I don't want to pay you to come out here and look at my building for 2 days or 3 days. Here is the information. We have worked on this, this, and this. We have used this amount of money for each one. We have replaced this item, and this is the money we saved. Don't come out here. This is the information that I'm going to give you and base it out of that one. That is a possibility, and it happens. Not highly recommended because we might see something that you did not saw or that you forgot. But it is a process of doing it, and the associations can save some money on engineering or person that go to your building. Beyond the reserve studies. A full capacity reserve study site inspection is a limited visual inspection, like we were just saying, of the common elements. It will not include destructive testing, sanding, or sampling. So keep in mind, it's just a walkthrough that we're going to be doing. The purpose of the site inspection is to collect information. So if we see damages on the building, we're going to tell you, hey, we saw this, this, this. It will be on our report, but we never did any testing, any sounding to make sure that it is hollow, or any sampling to say, yeah, that it's completely corroded, the pipe, so we don't know the life expectancy. It's just a visual from walking through the building. Similar to the sears, the association that desires more detailed information should consider then an engineer study. They're more in-depth evaluation, which include sounding the building. You can include, for example, piping to do a cleaning and then let's scope those pipes to see how they are. Designed to determine the structural functionality, integrity of common elements. Usually performed on older building, newer building that exhibits significant distress. Those are engineer studies that you could be doing if you want to go a little bit further than just a visual inspection. Funding reserve method and objective. This is the most critical part, and I swear to you guys, I think we're almost done here. 11 more slides and we should be done. So the association should fund reserve in a way that satisfies the risk tolerance of the community. Funding method and funding objective is what we're looking for on those elements. So straight line component funding method. The straight line method provides for independent funding of each common element. Let's say, and we're going to use this example moving forward on everything that we're going to be talking about. Let's say we got 10 items, whatever those 10 items are. The straight line will be saving money for each individual item. You should not be touching that money for other items if you're going to replace item A. So you're saving for A, B, C, D, E, and F. Money from F cannot be used to money on A because that is the straight line method. Unless you have it on your documents, unless you have it in a different scenario, voting on it or something like that. But straight line is straight line. You're saving money for each individual method, for each individual item. An example of a straight line, assume that the roof of the condominium has a 20-year service life, currently 10 years. The cost will be $50,000 to replace. The current reserve is $25,000, so the association must collect $25,000 for the next 10 years to get to that difference of 25. So what we're saying is the life expectancy is 20. We already have it in service for 10 years, so the life expectancy remaining is 10, and it's gonna cost me $50,000 to replace it in 10 years. I already have a starting balance. I already saved 25,000 bucks. So for the next 10 years, I need to save another $25,000. So that's where the 2,500 comes from. You do the same thing for your house. You do the same thing when you're gonna take a vacation. Hey, next year I want to go to, I don't know, Rome. It's gonna cost me, for my family, it's gonna cost me $15,000. Well, from now to next year, I'm gonna be saving X amount of money to get that money, and I don't have to put it on my credit card. So it will be the same process that we're using. The pool method is everything, all of those items, A, B, C, D, E, and F, are all put together, and we're saving the money, but we're gonna use it as we need to for the first item that comes along. So the replacement year and replacement cost for each common element component is determined the same way. The planning period must be equal to the remaining service life, like we talked before. An annual contribution amount are made such that the net reserve balance never goes to negative. So let's say we got A, B, C, D, and F. So I will be saving 10,000. If I need to fix A, B, C, D, E, or F, I will take some of that money to fix item A, but I should never go below the money that I have, should never go to negative. Will be addressed at one point, but let's say that the roof is going to be in 10 years, but first it's going to be my painting. So you're saving for painting, even though the money is distributed for everything. I'm going to use it for painting, and then I'm going to continue saving for when I get to my roof, and so on and so on. Pool is an easier method than straight line because it gives you that flexibility. In pool reserve, there is no fund balance assigned to each common element, even though you will see it, but it's not assigned to each individual element. And they are available for cost associated with any item in the reserve pool. Like I said, if you have those 5 items, 8 items, you can use the money for the first item that comes to be replaced or repaired. The straight line versus pool method, the straight line method can result in unplanned reserve assessment when the estimated remaining life of a component is overstated or its replacement cost is understated. And when we have our first question about fixing the roads and all that, I thought it was something to those terms, that it was the replacement cost was understated originally. The pool method is more flexible, like I just said, because money is in the pool and can be used for those reserve items as they come first come, first serve kind of scenario. In either case, poorly executed reserve plan will lead to unplanned capital assessment. So let's say that you have the best reserve study done for your association. Perfect, it's unique, but you don't save the money for it, it doesn't work anyway. Or let's say that we are supposed to be saving 100,000 per year, and we're only putting 25. So when something comes along, you're not going to have the necessary fundings, and it will cost for you to get either a loan or to do a special assessment. Again, paying a little bit more every year will be a lot easier than getting a special assessment at the end, but it will fall back to the association what they want. We're almost done, guys. We got 4 more to go, and we're done here. Fully funding. Fully funded reserve means that the cash on hand is equal to 100% of the current expired value of each common element. So if we have those same items, A, B, C, D, and F, and we are saving on each individual item, I'm going to have 100% of the cost for that item already saved. Baseline will mean that I have sufficient reserve on hand to go, that I will not run out of money. So I will have the money, and let's use the pool example. I'm doing the painting, and 5 years from now, I'm going to be doing the roof. That value that I have already pooled there will never go below 0, for example. Usually, some associations that we have worked on, like to have a little bit of wiggle room. So they will say, Hector, don't put it to zero. At least give me $100,000. And I'm using that one as an example. So the zero will become the 100,000. They will never go below 100. And they're always saving money because they always will have some reserve in their account because things might happen that you were not counting on. And you can have that money instead of saying, hey, I put it on my credit card, I have to take out a loan, or I have to do a special assessment. Threshold funding describe an objective chosen by the board other than 100% level or just staying cash positive baseline. So you can say, hey, we're not going to save 100%. We're going to do 75% of all of my items. That means that when the time comes to replace, the 25% have to be a special assessment. You save it somewhere else, or you're going to get a loan out of it. That could be an option. I don't like that option, but those are options that you have. Statutory funding. Describe the pursuit of an objective as described or required by local laws or codes. A certified public accountant must be engaged to audit, review, or compile the association annual financial statement. The financial statement included a section supplementary information of future major repairs and replacement, which is my reserve plan.